Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Carla Moran. I'm Carla with the C. I'm the South Bay Program Manager for 1000 Degrees.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jeanette Perez. I am one of the two college success managers for the 4-year success and alumni team.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Edson, and I am the College Access Manager for Southern and Central Marin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I'm a Program Manager for 4-year success and alumni. Okay, so we want to begin talking a little bit about what 10,000 Degrees is. As an organization, our work is grounded in achieving educational equity by supporting low-income students to and through college. Okay, we're going to go into growing our impact. I notice a lot of different school partners in our audience today. As a quick review, 10,000 Degrees is supporting over 12,000 students and their families in 8 different counties, and we work with students on college applications, financial aid, career support, and scholarships. Okay, awesome. So let's jump into our goals for today. Our goals for this training is to learn how to read and compare financial aid offer letters, learn some best practices for how to approach conversations with students and families in a strength-based, student-centered approach, learn ways to reduce and adjust cost of attendance, and lastly, receive tools to decode financial aid offer letters. Okay, so let's take a moment to first highlight and celebrate all the work that students have done to get to this point. From applying to college to getting admitted, the financial aid in college journey is a lengthy one. At this point, students are figuring out where they want to go, and we're supporting them with that step. Let's review some frequently asked questions. As students decide what college to attend, they will be reviewing their financial aid offer letters. Okay, so now what is a financial aid offer letter? It is a document that lists the cost to attend a specific school and also includes any financial aid the school is offering the student. Is the financial aid award letter the same as an offer letter? The answer for this is yes. You may see award letter or offer letter used interchangeably. So when do students receive their unofficial letter? 4-year schools will receive it shortly after they are accepted, and community college students will receive it around May or June. Okay, some more questions on this slide for us. Some more questions you may encounter are, where can a student view their offer letter? So it's important for students to know that their offer letter can be found in the financial aid section of their school portal, in their college email, or sometimes the letters are mailed as well. Are the offer letters final? Since students receive an unofficial offer shortly after being admitted, verification, missing documents, final budgets, and other factors may slightly change a student's financial aid offer. Okay, and lastly, is this letter the same every year? That's definitely a very popular question that we get. So every year the student will receive a new offer letter. Changes in income may impact future financial aid offers. And now I will hand it off to Kayla.
Thank you, Michelle. So the next thing we're going to go over is what's on an offer letter. So what types of aid may a student see on their letter? There's 3 different types of aid a student may see. The first one we're going to start off with is with gift aid, which is money that the student doesn't need to pay back. And some examples of this could be the Pell Grant, Cal Grant, or institutional scholarships. Then we have work study, where a student can earn money through a campus job. And some examples of this could be working at the library or at the bookstore. And I'm not going to talk too much about work study because we will be sharing out more in the next couple throughout the presentation. And then we have loans, which if a student does take out a loan, they will have to pay back the loan after graduating. And some examples of this could be subsidized, unsubsidized parent plus loan, or the dream loan. And we're going to also cover this topic throughout the presentation today. And what are the listed expenses? So the cost of attendance includes additional related expenses that are not covered by tuition and fees. In this example, the cost of attendance is $27,000. And as y'all see, there are also additional related such as transportation, personal care, meal plans, technology, and social life. So for fixed direct costs, this is non-negotiable, which students will not be able to negotiate at all. An example is tuition, and this typically does show on the school billing system, and it's charged on a specific deadline. So we really encourage students to check the portal, make sure that they don't miss a deadline to pay this. Then we have flexible direct costs, which can be reduced based on the student's preferences and needs. This also appears on the school's billing system, and they're charged on a specific deadline. And an example could be room and board. If a student's going to be living in a triple, or if they want to double, the prices will be different, and then they're typically charged on a specific deadline. So once again, we want to encourage students to check the portal. And then we have flexible and direct costs, which can also be reduced based on the student's preferences and need. And this doesn't appear on the school bill, and the indirect cost typically comes up throughout the year. So an example could be transportation or books and supplies, just to name a few. And then a quick tip we have for you all is if a student has an outstanding balance on the school billing system after their financial aid has been dispersed, they may be able to create a scheduled payment plan directly with their college. And this would be a good way to help reduce the amount of loans a student may have to take out. Overall, we really encourage students to self-advocate, reach out to the financial aid rep, and see if this is an option for them. And I'm going to hand it over to Jeanette.
Thank you, Kayla. So now we're going to be going over loans. I know that Kayla covered gift aid, work study, and loans. And going a little bit deeper into loans, we just wanted to provide you all with some best practices when it comes to this option or form of financial aid for students, right? It's important to remember that loans are an option if the student needs it. A student might be awarded a loan, but because they are receiving enough financial aid, they might not need it at the end of the day. It's also about making a knowledgeable and well-informed decision. So this means that the student is aware what type of loan they're receiving, how much of the loan they're taking out, and what the process looks like to be able to receive their loan. Know that your students don't need to take out the whole loan. Students can take a portion of that. If, for example, they're awarded $4,000, but the gap or the amount of money that they need is only $2,000, they can opt for only taking those $2,000. It is completely up to the student and how they want to prepare for the future, because we want them to be thinking long-term on, is this loan going to be beneficial if they take it all out, or is it more beneficial if they only take part of it and maybe they have some savings that they can use? It's important to also remember that students are aware, is taking loans every year sustainable, right? And often students can use a tool like the FAFSA loan repayment simulator to get a better understanding of what payments may look like in the future. They can also reach out to their loan providers and ask as many questions as they possibly can so that they know what type of support they're going to be receiving from them as well. Next up is talking about the different types of loans. Just like there are different types of gift aid, we have different types of loans. And what we always very much encourage is that students know what type of loans are available to them, so that then they can decide, this is the one that I want to take, or because I really have to, this one might benefit me the most. And just breaking it down a little bit more, we have the subsidized loan. Something important to note about this loan in particular is that the interest rate does not accumulate while a student is enrolled in school. And this is great because that means that if they take out those $2,000, those $2,000 will remain the same. There's no interest being added. And that means that the amount that they've taken out isn't going to go up when they have to repay. When taking out the subsidized loan, it's also good to note that repayment does not begin until 6 months after the student has graduated from their educational goal, or they've completed their program of choice, or in the very rare case, if a student drops under less than part-time, then their loan provider will be prompted to be like, hey, we need you to start repaying back. Moving on to the next one, we have unsubsidized loan. The difference between this one and the previous one is that interest does start to accrue while the student is enrolled in school. And similar to the other, to the subsidized loan, repayment begins 6 months after the student has graduated or completed their program, or if they fall under the part-time, less than part-time requirement. The next one, and one of the ones that is a little bit more uncommon for students, but is still an option, is the Parent Plus loan. With this one, you will note that as soon as the student receives the money, they will receive a notice, hey, you can start repaying it. And that's because they will require for the students to start repaying the loan if they've already received the full amount. So if they've been awarded 1,000 and they take out the full 1,000 and they receive it, once they've gotten that full amount, then they are expected to start paying that back because their loan has been fully dispersed. It's also, keep in mind that you may, or the student may request a deferment. It's important to keep in communication with their loan provider. If they need a little bit more time to start paying that back, they have to communicate with them. Otherwise, they might not have those accommodations. And it's important for the student to also know who they can contact for support. Now we're going into work study. Work study is an amazing option for a lot of students because work study is a grant. It's money that they don't need to pay back. But something to know is that the way that you apply for work study is during your application process for your financial aid. In this case, the FAFSA. You need to indicate in the form itself that you are interested, because otherwise the school won't know and they won't know to check for students' eligibility and how much the student can receive. So if a student is even interested, like they might want to keep that option open, it's important to let them know, hey, you don't have to commit to this, but you can let them know, yes, I'm interested, so that they can check if you're eligible and what your amount would be in case you were to need it in the future. Saying yes won't have a negative impact. If anything, it'll provide the student with more options. And if work study is not initially offered to the student, despite them having indicated that they are interested, the student can talk with their financial aid office and they can request to be considered or to check for their eligibility. Another set of benefits from work study is that their hours are very, very flexible. Most of these jobs are on campus, which often means that one, yes, there is high demand, but if a student is able to apply, and this is the most important part, is the student needs to be proactive and search for a work study job on campus and apply, go through the process, submit proper documents as they are being asked for, and note that one of the perks that a lot of students really enjoy is that it's on campus, right? If they don't have a car or they have a time crunch, they get out of class within half an hour and then they work 20 minutes later, they have the accessibility to their work because it's already on campus and they don't have to worry about commuting. Some things to review with students is that the student needs to work in order to receive. So even if they're awarded $10,000 for the school year, the student won't see that money unless they're actually working. And completing the hours necessary to receive that money. Again, the student is responsible for finding an on-campus job and really emphasizing that they can be competitive. So it's good to note that students can start job hunting early, or like searching for a job early on before they start school. As they're transitioning to the next quarter, there's always students transitioning in and out of these jobs. So that might be a good time for them to search for one. And students can advocate to their employers for more work hours beyond their approved work study amount. This is also an option that a lot of students are not aware about. Some other opportunities for financial aid is emergency funding at college campuses. A lot of students are not aware that a lot of different departments on campus do have alternative forms of emergency grants, which means that students can go and apply to these should they find themselves in a situation where, hey, my laptop just broke, I don't have the money, I can actually go and apply for these. And they may get a scholarship for a laptop, or they may just get the laptop directly. There are a lot of cool programs on campus that can be found through different departments. And that means that the student just needs to go ask, hey, are you aware of any emergency grants, or are you aware of any programs that might benefit me that can provide any school materials and money? I need a scholarship to pay rent. Are there any programs on campus? Checking in with your school and knowing that this is an option. A lot of these resources also can be found in community spaces like cultural centers, and some staff and faculty might also be aware of these programs because they themselves may be connected to them. Encouraging students to talk to their staff, faculty, or just peers in general will help them better get an understanding of what resources are on campus. And some schools, in fact, and this is a little bit more on the private school side and smaller colleges, where they may have relocation grants, allowing the students to be able to get a scholarship that will help them get material or things like snow gear, right? If they're moving to Utah or to any other, like Michigan, any other states that may have different weather from what the student is used to, relocation grants are a possibility. And there are different types of relocation grants available to students. Filling the need, and what that looks like is understanding of what the cost of attendance for students are and what type of financial aid the student is receiving in order to be able to fill that need. So now that we're looking at this, the students can fill their financial need in order to be able to attend their institution of choice is through grants, loans, work study, and scholarships. We take the cost of attendance, which can include tuition, room and board, books and supplies, meal plans, really anything that is an additional cost to the student's experience. And we subtract that with the amount of financial aid that students are being offered. This looks like work study, loans, scholarships, and any additional grants. When these two are subtracted, the student is able to better understand how much money they have left over to pay. In some cases, students might not need to cover for additional costs, and in some cases, students might still have a little bit of money left over that they need to be able to cover on their own. And I will be passing it on now.
Thank you, Jeanette. So we're going to be covering troubleshooting offer letters and common challenges. So here, what happens if a student has not received their letter yet? And so one of the things that we tell students is to double check that they don't have any missing documents or holds in their student portal. Also that they're checking their web grant for students to make sure that the school that they're attending is the school, is the correct school of attendance listed. As well, it's very important that they double check their full legal name and that it matches all applications and documents that they have filled out through FAFSA, California Dream Act, the school, in any submitted forms that they have done, as well as if the student who is submitting a California Dream Act, that they confirm that their 40 form has been submitted. Very important. Also, if your student is in the process of dependency override, and it's in progress, making sure that they're following up with the financial aid office to make sure that they can also get an updated award letter with accurate numbers. Also that they also reach out to make sure that they can get an extension and also be put on the no drop list to indicate that the student is in progress of any of their missing documents. And if the student is living on campus, to communicate with all campus offices, which being the registrar, housing, to make sure that their housing isn't impacted. If the student does not see their Cal Grant on their offer letter, on their unofficial offer letter, the Cal Grant might appear as the state grant or the school that they're attending grant. On the official letter, they'll see both state university grant and Cal Grant, kind of like the picture we show above, below. And then also financial aid verification. So what is this? This is when the school asks for additional documents that they want to verify the student's information that was reported on the FAFSA and California DREAM Act. And so how does the student know that they got verified? The school will add a to-do item in their college portal and financial aid portal. Also, this generally happens January and March. If the student does make changes to their financial aid application, that also can cause verification. And so making sure that they're double checking everything. What gets verified? Income reported, so they can turn in a tax transcript or their W-2s. Also their household size, dependency status, and their California residency. And this is all documents that are provided from the school. And so one of the best practices that we have is that they check their portals often to make sure that there aren't any holds, and also that they're able to ask for extensions in a timely manner on their to-do items if they anticipate any future challenges. And so this is what their student portal looks like. And this is very important for the student to view any of the holds or to-do items. This also will show whether the student got verified. This is also a place where students will find their financial aid offer letter, as well as their admission status. So it's very important, and repetition works, to make sure that they're checking this often. And now I will pass it on.
Thank you, Carla. So as Carla shared, part of the verification process could mean students may need to retrieve their tax transcript. Some students may not know what an IRS tax transcript is. It is a document that shows the financial information for the requested tax year, and it is also a summary of personal and financial information. So how does a student order this document? Students can order a tax return transcript online, by mail, or over the phone, and it takes 7 to 10 days to arrive. The website to order this document is available in multiple languages, which is great. And we have included the link on this slide. A best practice is to encourage students to order one every year so that they have it handy just in case they do get verified. Okay, so a scenario you may come across as you are supporting students with their financial aid offer letters is one where a student is being charged as an international or out-of-state student. In this situation, one possibility is that the student is AB 540 eligible. If a student is AB 540 eligible, they are exempt from paying out-of-state or non-resident tuition. To be AB 540 eligible, a student must have attended a California school, K through 12, community college, or adult school for 3 years. They must obtain a California high school diploma or GED, CHSP, associate's degree, or receive enough units to transfer. Students must be attending an accredited California college or university. They also must complete an affidavit with the college. So a little bit more about the AB 540 affidavit form. This form makes sure that the school considers the student for in-state tuition. Students must submit an affidavit form to each school they are considering attending after they complete a California Dream Act application. So once the school has an affidavit form on file, students do not need to resubmit each year unless they transfer or switch schools at any point. So again, a tip for high school students and transfer students is to submit a form to every school they apply to in early spring so that their offer letters reflect accurate tuition fees. Okay, so we do understand that circumstances change. Some examples include new medical expenses, a loss or change in employment. Any change in circumstance can be communicated to the school at any point in the year, but the student needs to have a financial aid application on file to seek any adjustments. So if there is a change in circumstance, the student will submit a letter of appeal to their financial aid office at that point. Awesome. So let's talk about negotiation. Keep in mind that the first offer letter is just that, an offer. After reviewing their offer, students can ask their financial aid office if there is any additional institutional aid available. They can also ask for more work study and more subsidized loans. Again, students need to take the initiative to reach out to their financial aid office and practice that self-advocacy. And now I will hand it off to Jeanette.
Thank you, Nacheli. Next, we're going to be covering student-centered conversations and what that looks like. When it comes to having student-centered conversations with students, it's important to celebrate options and be supportive of all their interests and choices. Students and their families have an understanding, should have an understanding, or at least a better understanding of what their expected costs and know and be aware of common financial aid terms. Why is this important? Knowledge is power, and we know that when a student and their family knows what does verification mean, what does tax transcripts mean, when they know what these mean, they know what they need to do in order to be able to be proactive and receive their financial aid, right? For example, another thing is being aware that there is a dream school versus best fit, and this is going to vary student by student. We encourage exploring options, and despite some options they may not be the best, they might not get the best financial aid, but it's the students and their families' decision. One thing that is extremely important to keep in mind when we're having these conversations is educator bias, being aware of your body language, how you're reacting to maybe some of the options that they're thinking about. Maybe when they're thinking about, oh, I'm a student athlete, I want to go play here, but their financial aid award is not the best. What's important and what really helps students be critical about their choices is asking prompting questions or guiding questions. What about this school do you like? What would you benefit from this campus? Do they have resources that can accommodate your needs? Asking prompting questions is going to help the student really think about, okay, this is more than just this is my dream school versus this is the best fit, but always being mindful of your own bias. Our job is to provide that support, that knowledge, that information, but at the end of the day, students and their families are the ones that are making that decision. And when they do, celebrating it and supporting them through the process so that they know that they can come back to you and seek support if needed, should they find themselves in a situation that they don't know how to navigate. Next steps for students is also keeping in mind important upcoming deadlines. May 1st for high school students, as well as June 1st for transfer students, means that they need to accept their offer of admission. They need to pay orientation, housing, and enrollment deposit fees. Expenses are typically out of pocket. And what that means is that the student may need to cover it. Some schools may allow them to have alternative options if they aren't able to pay up front, but communication is key, like we've mentioned with everything else. Have the student ask their appropriate office for support if they are unable to pay in that moment and see what their options are. June and July is the time when students are finally receiving their financial aid award letters, which is going to mean that they now need to review them and accept. And where we're going to have those conversations on what type of grants are you getting, what scholarships are you getting, and what are your loan options, and do you need to consider taking out a loan, right? And this is going to then impact when their financial aid is dispersed. They're going to see all of that in action, which is also important to keep in mind that they need to be aware of when their financial aid is going to be dispersed and when payments are going to post so that the students avoid any late fees. In August and September, you need to make sure that tuition and other costs are paid before the deadline. Some schools will give grace period because they know, hey, financial aid may be delayed. So it's not on the student's end if they gave us the permission to pay on their behalf. But some schools may not have that, or the student might have missed giving the school that permission. And that means that they may be dropped if they haven't paid. So please keep this in mind. Make sure they're aware of all deadlines that are coming up once they've accepted their school and even before, so that they can plan that out appropriately. And we are going to be covering reading and comparing financial aid offer letters. The main important thing to keep in mind when considering and looking into financial aid offer letters is, one, is the offer letter there? Does the student know where their financial aid portal is? Some schools have a whole separate portal. Some schools, you gotta do a little bit of digging, but keep in mind that if you don't see it after knowing exactly where it is, that may be an indicator that a student may be missing certain documents, or their financial aid didn't connect to their institution for one reason or another. This is a red flag, and it is important to look into it as soon as possible. With that being said, we're going to have screenshots of different portals for different campuses, both private, in-state, out-of-state, UC, CSUs, and community college. And what you want to note is that the parts that are being highlighted is some of these schools show this is the cost of attendance. This is the estimated amount. Of course, it's not going to reflect exactly what it's going to be, but it's a rough estimate because the school does try to be as accurate as possible. And things can vary, like books and supplies can vary per major. It can be as little as like $1,500, but for a science major, that might not be realistic. So that is a good reference point. And once you're looking at the grants and scholarships, that's what you want to pay attention to as well in great detail, because that will tell you how much free aid is the student receiving. And after that, what are the loan options if available? Is the student being granted work study? This is where you're going to be able to note, my student applied for work study, were they awarded? Right? This is where you should be able to see that. If you don't, again, talking to the financial aid office, but also knowing that at the end in this financial aid packet, it should include a total of including grants and scholarships and loan options. This is an out-of-state financial aid award letter. As you can see, it looks very different from that of the private school and the CSU. But some things to note is that for this student, they are considered out of state and they are being awarded nearly $29,000 in loans. $29,000 in loans. The student's EFC is 0, but when a student is considered out of state, there is an out-of-state fee. Or the student is not considered an in-state student, which often means that the cost per unit is a lot higher than a student that is considered an in-state student. So looking at the cost of attendance, looking at what they're being awarded, and looking at what is left over. This is the overall theme with any financial aid award letter. This is the University of Utah, and the student is considered an in-state. Despite that, the student doesn't have any loans, right? They don't need to take out any loans, or they are not giving any loans. The EFC was 0, meaning like that this is a high need financial aid student, and their whole need was not met, which means that there is leftover money that they're going to need to figure out a way to cover via scholarships, internships, a job, right? And knowing this in advance can help the student prepare, knowing how to read what is the free money, what is something that you need to pay back, and how to receive those loans is going to be extremely important. This is a community college financial aid letter, and you want to pay attention to the Pell Grant amount, right? That's going to depend on the number of units that the student was enrolled in. Typically, it goes on a full-time enrollment. And so the less amount of units that you take, the award decreases. This also, it is a community college, but they do also keep in mind that community college tend to be commuter schools, and they try to make the student aware, hey, this is an estimate of what your room and board may look like, especially if schools don't offer dorms, right? Most community colleges don't have dorm options for students, and that means that they either need to commute or they find a place of their own if that is what they choose to do. But again, you see the financial aid award letter, it's here. It gives you all of the information on their scholarships and grants and what estimated costs may look like. Referring back to, so what AB 540, Nachelle covered this earlier. She covered the requirements, what you need in order to be AB 540 eligible, but what does that actually look like when you're looking at a financial aid award letter? In this case, the student is attending UC Santa Cruz, and you see they have the UC Santa Cruz grant, they have a scholarship, and then in blue, you see they have a loan. And like they have, these are their loan options, right? This is what they're being provided. And right below that, you see what's called a non-resident exemption. This is a fee. If a student is AB 540 eligible, but for some reason the school did not catch that, or the student did not submit the verification paperwork to let the school know, hey, actually, I do qualify for AB 540. What they do is they're going to charge the student with an out-of-state fee, and that can be in the thousands of dollars, making it unaffordable for a lot of students to be able to attend this institution. But what does happen is when the student is AB 540 eligible and they do submit that documentation that they're being asked, it's called an AB 540 affidavit. Essentially, they evaluate the student's residency's eligibility, and they grant them a grant. Basically, it's that non-resident exemption, and they, on their award, it's still going to look, hey, this is a student that is considered an out-of-state student or an international student, and because they do meet California AB 540 eligibility requirements, we are providing them with this waiver of some sort, and that's going to drop down the cost of attendance by so much. Know that students do have access to Dream and University loans. And if you don't see, here you see the UC Santa Cruz grant, but if you don't see the Cal grant, it might show as a university grant, because at the end of the day, the goal of these grants is to help provide tuition cost coverage. Be very, very intentional about when you're reading financial aid award letters for students that are AB 540, because we need to make sure that the affidavit has been received, that they're not being asked for additional information, and if they are, that they do so in a timely manner, because this can severely impact and delay their financial aid. And we want to make sure that students are able to enroll in their classes, that they're able to cover the cost without putting too much out of pocket. If you have any questions, please ask us or reach out if you have any curiosities around the process. And I will be handing it off to Carla.
Thank you, Jeanette. So we're gonna now talk about our comparison tool. This, it is a spreadsheet that we use to work with our students to kind of help them make the most accurate decision. Awesome. So here, this is our comparison tool. And so here we have specific rows that talk about tuition fees, room and board, kind of what we've been talking about throughout this whole presentation on what the student would be filling out. And so here we have an example of what the expenses are. And so they can actually look into their award letter and see and fill out as they go. But this is also an option for them to kind of start thinking about those indirect costs or those costs that could be kind of flexible when it comes to living in a double or living with their parents. And so we want to make sure that the student sees options. They can see this award comparison tool as a way to kind of see what the school is giving them and also what the unmet cost will be, or whether they're going to be getting back money for when they're attending school. So here you'll see the financial aid award letter that SF State provided. This is where the student will see the grants that they've received, as well as kind of the work study, the loans, and then also their aid for year total. And then also we have under there the undergraduate full-time attendance for 2 semesters. And so basically filling those out in those places where it's like tuition fees, obviously that is a fixed direct cost, which they will have to provide, they have to pay. And so that would be 7,006. So the student will put that there. And again, you'll be working with your student to kind of find those numbers as they're going through it. So again, 7,006 for all 3, because we are kind of calculating it within the same school. For room and board, it will be 8,748. And then for books and supplies, also this could be something that can change, especially if they're trying to rent them and everything. The school does give them an estimate of what that looks like. And here they told them that they would be spending about 1,038. So yeah, so for room and board, let me go back to that. There is different prices that they can go into. Obviously, if they're living in a double, is going to be 15,950. If they're living in a triple, they would be 12,500. And if they're living with their parents, obviously the cost will be less, approximately about 8,748. And so, yeah, so this is a tool that you can use, again, just to make sure that the student kind of sees more of a visual to what they will be working with. We can go into grants and scholarships. So for Pell Grant, they're receiving a 6,345. For the federal supplement education opportunity grant, they're going to be receiving $400. The state university grant will be 5,742. And then if they're getting any scholarships or anything, this is also a space where students can submit those and also see what money, how they will be, what they will be working with. And then just filling in the top, sorry, Maria, filling out the top in terms of, again, the technology, transportation, just personal expenses. It's also good to include those, even though, you know, it might be less. And so kind of also navigating that with your student to see what they estimate that they will be spending. So yeah, so this is a great tool for you to use with your students, whether they're calculating in just one school and they want to kind of see the different plans, or if they want to look at the different colleges that they've been accepted and they want to see what the school is providing. So here again, the non-residential exception form, other scholarships. Here they see the total of what the school is providing, as well as the unmet need that they will be having. Also, if they got if they receiving work study, how that will also impact their unmet cost or unmet need, sorry. If the student is able to contribute, this is where they would also include it. If the student is also able to, if they have savings, they can also include it here. And so here it also gives an opportunity to see, for the student to see what the amount that is not covered. And so we can also add the loan. So students here is receiving a loan for the subsidized loan for $3,500, and they can accept it again, kind of like what Jeanette shared, whether that's going to be helping them. And so here, for the unsubsidized loan, we included also the amount, and we can also share if they do take out the loans, this is kind of what they're working with. So the amount covered. And so again, this tool is just for students to use, as well as you as educators, to help them make these informed decisions. And so you will get a link to our page where you'll be able to access the comparison tool. And so you're able to download this and, help your student kind of make those informed decisions. And so this is all available to you in the link that is on the chat.
Okay, so now that we have reached the end of our presentation, we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We will be answering any questions that you may have. So feel free to comment questions in the chat or unmute yourself as well.